The 2006 Hezbollah cross-border raid was a cross-border attack carried out by Lebanon-based Hezbollah militants on an Israeli military patrol on 12 July 2006 on Israeli territory, using rockets fired on several Israeli towns as a diversion. Hezbollah militants crossed from Lebanon into Israel and ambushed 2 Israeli army vehicles, killing 3 soldiers and abducting 2 other soldiers. Another 5 soldiers were killed inside Lebanese territory in a failed rescue attempt. Hezbollah demanded the release of Lebanese prisoners held by Israel in exchange for the release of the abducted soldiers. Israel refused and launched a large-scale military campaign across Lebanon in response to the Hezbollah incursion. This marked the start of the 2006 Lebanon War. 2 years later, on 16 July 2008, the bodies of the 2 abducted soldiers were returned to Israel by Hezbollah in exchange for Samir Kunter and 4 Hezbollah prisoners. Hezbollah originally named the cross-border operation Freedom for Samir al-Kuntar and his brothers, but eventually shortened it to Operation Truthful Promise. Background: in 2000, Israel suddenly reversed its policy towards Lebanon, and after 18 years of occupation it withdrew from the southern part of the country. Hezbollah considered this a great victory. Hezbollah still had issues with Israel, in addition to purely ideological ones. Radical elements within Hezbollah, led by intelligence chief Ahmed Mufnia, in 2000 formed a committee for the elimination of Israel inside the movement. According to Hezbollah, Israel still occupied Lebanese territory. It did not recognize the blue line drawn by the United Nations. Most importantly, it claimed the area of the so-called Shabaa Farms, which was occupied by Israel in 1967 in the war against Syria, but according to Lebanon, the area had been Lebanese. Later studies conducted by the United Nations has confirmed that the area in fact was Lebanese. In a landmark prisoner exchange via German mediation in January 2004, 450 Lebanese prisoners held in Israeli jails were exchanged for the bodies of 3 Israeli soldiers and a captured IDF colonel. The long-time Lebanese prisoner Samir al-Kuntar was excluded from the deal. The government of Israel, however, had agreed to a further arrangement whereby Israel would release Samir al-Kuntar if it was supplied with tangible information on the fate of captive navigator Ron Arad. According to Helen Issacharoff, the second phase of the prisoner exchange deal was only a legal gimmick. Israel was not satisfied with the information supplied by Hezbollah and refused to release al-Kuntar. Cynics may well ask whether it was worth getting entangled in the Second Lebanon War just to keep Kuntar in prison for an extra few years. The covert war between Hezbollah and Israel was slowly heating up. Hezbollah leader Ghalib Abu Ali was assassinated in a car bomb attack in the Dahia in Beirut in July 2004. Israel was the main suspect. As ZVI Bal commented, Abu Ali's killing sends a new message. Israel can get to Hezbollah anywhere in Lebanon. Hezbollah retaliated by letting a sniper in Itarash Shab shoot 2 Israeli soldiers at the Nurat post just across the border. In January 2005, Hezbollah Secretary General Hassan Nasrallah confirmed that all options are open concerning the means to get al-Kuntar and the remaining prisoners back. The Lebanese government also demanded that Israel return all Lebanese prisoners and bodies to Lebanon. A third issue was the alleged systematic violations of Lebanese territory by Israel since its withdrawal in 2000. According to the Speaker of the Lebanese Parliament, Nabi Berri, the Lebanese had violated the blue line less than 100 times between 2000 and 2006. While the number of Israeli violations was 11,782 times by air, sea and land during the same time. On 21 November 2005, Hezbollah guerrillas infiltrated Gaza in a failed attempt to abduct Israeli soldiers. 4 Hezbollah fighters were killed, and in response, Israel launched airstrikes and artillery at Hezbollah positions in southern Lebanon. During the brief clash, Hezbollah also launched rockets at towns in northern Israel. On 28 May 2006, less than 2 months before the Lebanon War began, Hezbollah fired rockets into northern Israel in response to the killing in Lebanon of Mahmoud al-Majzoub. Israel retaliated by launching airstrikes on Hezbollah bases in Lebanon and firing artillery across the border. The fighting was described as the most intense since the Israeli withdrawal in 2000, though it was over quickly due to a UN-sponsored ceasefire. The IDF wanted to avoid all confrontations with Hezbollah but was frustrated by the lack of action on the political level. It knew that Hezbollah was not interested in hitting Israeli civilian targets. It adopted a policy of zero targets, implying that IDF presence was reduced to a minimum whenever the risk of Hezbollah abduction attempts was deemed to be high. Ironically, during alerts, the red zones along the border became off-limit to military personnel but were open to civilian traffic. On 8 July, Udi Adam, the head of Northern Command, even took his wife for a drive in a civilian car in one of the red zones. The head of Northern Command Maj. Gen. Adam warned, only a day before the abduction, in a meeting with Prime Minister Olmert, Defense Minister Peretz, Chief of Staff Halutz and some generals. "We're on the verge of another event on the Lebanese border. It's a stagnant swamp there. If we don't progress on the Shabbat arms issue and the Lebanese prisoners, this story will blow up in our faces." In the months leading up to the 12th of July attack, Lt. Col. Ishai Efroni reported seeing increased activity across the fence line, including more brazen Hezbollah patrols. He had repeatedly seen burden-laden donkeys, which he had believed were being led by innocent farmers, but after the incident suspected were laden with arms and equipment. After the 28th of May rocket attack, the colonel, who at 41 had spent much of his career along the northern border, got the feeling something had changed. Hezbollah had carved a hollow from the underbrush, just above the Israeli border patrol track. The camp was stocked with food, water, radios, rifles, anti-tank missiles and diagrams detailing the insignia and size of Israeli military units. Israeli intelligence was certain that Hezbollah was planning an attack, and correctly suspected that it would take place at a portion of the border known as Milepost 105, where the road that ran along the border dipped into a wadi, where patrolling troops and vehicles would be out of sight of nearby IDF observation posts and dug-in tanks, creating a dead zone. On 27 June 2006, the IDF issued a high alert at Milepost 105, and stationed a team from the Eagles reconnaissance unit in ambush positions to intercept any Hezbollah raid. By the 2nd of July, after no attack had come, the Eagles team withdrew. On the night of the 11th of July, IDF monitors noted several reports of contacts along the electric fence near Milepost 105, and an Israeli reserve patrol spotted 20 Hezbollah fighters near the location. But this information never filtered down to reserve units due to patrol the area on the 12th of July. The attack, at around 9 a.m. local time, on 12 July 2006, Hezbollah initiated diversionary Katyusha rocket and mortar attacks on Israeli military positions and border villages, including Zarait and Shlomi. 5 civilians were wounded. A ground contingent of Hezbollah fighters crossed the border into Israeli territory, and may have used a wheeled ladder to climb the fence. They hid an ambush in the wadi of Milepost 105. As 2 Israeli armored Humvees arrived, one of the Hezbollah fighters, who was hiding among weeds with an anti-tank missile, was spotted from a nearby IDF observation tower, but the tower was apparently unable to relay this information to the soldiers. As the Israeli Humvees passed, they were attacked with a combination of pre-positioned explosives and anti-tank missiles. The team knocked out the trailing Humvee, killing 3 soldiers inside, and abducted 2 soldiers from the first vehicle. Another soldier was severely wounded, another lightly wounded, and a third was scratched by shrapnel. The entire incident took no more than 10 minutes. At the same time, Hezbollah fighters fired on 7 army posts, knocking out surveillance cameras and command communications with the convoy. 20 minutes passed until First Sergeant Ehud Goldwasser, 30, and Sergeant First Class Eldad Regev, 25, were confirmed to be missing from the first vehicle. The Hezbollah fighters then escaped through olive orchards to the Lebanese border village of Aita al-Shab. The Hannibal Directive is a secret IDF order stating that abductions of Israeli soldiers must be prevented by all means, including shooting at or shelling a getaway car, thereby risking the lives of the captives. The Hannibal Directive was invoked, and this triggered an instant aerial surveillance and airstrikes inside Lebanon to limit Hezbollah's ability to move the soldiers it had seized. If we had found them, we would have hit them, even if it meant killing the soldiers, a senior Israeli official said. Lt. Col. Ishai Efroni, deputy commander of the Baram Brigade, sent a Merkava Mark II tank, an armored personnel carrier and a helicopter in pursuit. Crossing into Lebanon, they headed down a dirt track lined with Lebanese border defenses. However, they veered onto a road near a known Hezbollah outpost along the border. The tank was destroyed by an IED with an estimated 200 to 300 kilograms of explosives, killing the crew of 4. 1 soldier was killed and 2 were lightly wounded by mortar fire as they attempted to recover the bodies. Originally, Israel assumed that both captives were alive. In the end of July, Vice Premier Shimon Peres assured the families of the captured that both were alive and well. On the 2nd of August, Israeli special forces raided the Dar al-Hikmeh hospital in Baalbek in the Bekaa Valley, believed to be the place where kidnapped soldiers were treated after they were abducted. The soldiers were not found at the place. The Lebanese minister Ali Hassan Khalil refers in his memoirs to a conversation he had with Hussein al-Khalil, a senior advisor to Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah in the beginning of August 2006. Al-Khalil told him that the 2 soldiers both survived the capture, but were killed weeks later by Israeli bombardment. There were, however, no suggestions that Israel deliberately had targeted the 2 prisoners. According to Al-Khalil, it was Hezbollah's use of heavy rockets and Israel's response by expanding the area of bombardment that led to the 2 Israelis' death. The IDF dismissed these claims as blatant fabrications and psychological warfare. An examination of the bodies of Goldwasser and Regev later determined that the 2 reservists were killed during the initial cross-border attack and not in captivity. Goldwasser was killed after a rocket-propelled grenade on their IDF Hummer vehicle injured him in the chest. Regev was shot in the head, possibly while he was trying to escape. Aftermath. The IDF confirmed the capture of the 2 Israeli soldiers on the 13th of July. They were both reservists on their last day of operational duty. Hezbollah released a statement saying, "Implementing our promise to free Arab prisoners in Israeli jails. Our strugglers have captured 2 Israeli soldiers in southern Lebanon." Later on, Hassan Nasrallah declared that no military operation will return he prisoners will not be returned except through one way, indirect negotiations and a trade of prisoners. The incident prompted the start of the 2006 Lebanon War. Israel responded with airstrikes and artillery shelling of Hezbollah targets, and a naval blockade against Lebanon, followed by a ground invasion. After 34 days of fighting, a ceasefire came into effect. During the war, Israeli forces took 4 Hezbollah fighters prisoner, and captured the bodies of 10 more. On 6 August the IDF announced one of the Hezbollah participants was captured in a commando operation. On 27 August 2006, Nasrallah denied in an interview with New TV that the capture of the 2 soldiers was the cause of the war. It only advanced a long-planned war for a few months. But he added, if there was even a 1% chance that the July 11 capturing operation would have led to a war like the one that happened, would you have done it? I would say no, absolutely not, for humanitarian, moral, social, security, military, and political reasons. What happened is not an issue of a reaction to a capturing operation. What happened was already planned for. The fact that it happened in July has averted a situation that would have been a lot worse, had the war been launched in October. On the other side, however, Israeli PM Ehud Olmert testified before the Winograd Commission that he had fully planned for an intensive war upon a kidnapping as early as March. Nasrallah stated on 31 October 2006 that indirect talks with Israel on hostage return had begun. Haaretz reported in March 2007 that Prime Minister Ehud Olmert testified to the Winograd Commission that several meetings regarding Hezbollah were held upon his taking office, and that in response to the likely scenario of soldiers again being abducted, he chose one of several plans of action instead of having to make a snap judgment if and when such a scenario occurred. On 6 December 2006, a previously classified report released by Israel stated that the 2 soldiers were critically wounded during the abduction. On 29 June 2008, Prime Minister Ehud Olmert declared the 2 captives dead. On 16 July 2008, Hezbollah swapped the bodies of Ehud and Eldad for Samir Kunter, 4 Hezbollah prisoners captured during the 2006 Lebanon War, and the bodies of 199 killed Palestinian and Lebanese fighters, 8 of whom were captured in the 2006 war.